This is an antibody. Antibodies are used to mark antigens, that way white blood cells, or the macrophages, can come and kill it, and get rid of it and dispose of it from the body.
Yeah.
Alright, so the activation of the immune response typically begins when a pathogen enters the body. Macrophages, or otherwise known as white blood cells, then encounter the pathogen, ingest the pathogen, process it, and display antigen fragments on cell surfaces.
Macrophages with antigen fragments displayed on their surfaces are called antigen-presenting cells. An antigen-presenting macrophage interacts with a T helper cell that can recognize the same antigen.
During the interaction, the macrophage releases a chemical alarm signal called interleukin-1, which stimulates the T helper cell to secrete interleukin-2. Interleukin-2 causes the proliferation of certain killer T cells and B cells.
The immune system from this point follows two paths, one using killer T cells and one using B cells.
Normal cells of the body that become infected can also digest some of the pathogens, display the antigen fragments on their cell surfaces as well. The body makes millions of different types of killer T cells.
Each type is able to recognize a particular antigen. The killer T cells that are capable of recognizing the antigen displayed on the surfaces of infected cells bind to the infected cells and produce chemicals that kill the infected cell.
The death of infected cells results in the destruction of the pathogen. Cells also come in millions of different types, each able to recognize a particular antigen.
When B cells become activated by T helper cells, they differentiate into plasma cells. These plasma cells become antibody-producing factories, flooding the bloodstream with antibodies that can bind to the antigen involved in this infection.
Antibodies bind to the antigens on the surfaces of the pathogens, making them the destruction by the macrophages.
It says marking them.
Shut up.
Some of the B...
Alright, go.
Okay, I'm ready.
Go.
Some of the B cells do not turn into antibody factories, but instead become memory B cells that may survive for several decades.
Because of these memory B cells, the secondary immune response to a future infection by the same pathogen is swifter and stronger than before.
This powerful secondary immune response is what gives immunity to some diseases after you have had them once or after you have been vaccinated. That's it, we're done.
This has been a presentation by Master Productions.
In other words, basically, a pathogen enters the cell. A macrophage, or a white blood cell, it then eats the pathogen and then displays fragments of it on its surface. It interacts with a T helper cell that can interpret or understand that that isn't that particular antigen. It releases a chemical called interleukin-1, which works as an alarm, and then it allows T helper cells to make interleukin-2. This allows killer T cells and B cells to be created by the body. Immune system can then use either killer T cells or B cells, depending on whichever one it needs to. Normal cells, which are not part of the immune system, can digest the pathogen and then display the antigen just as the macrophage did. The killer T cell recognizes this antigen, kills that cell, destroying the pathogen. B cells work a little bit differently. They differentiate into plasma cells, and these things are basically antibody factories. The antibodies mark the pathogen so the macrophages, in other words, white blood cells, can kill them. And the other B cells become memory cells, allowing the body to react faster to the infection than it did the first time. And this is what leads to humans to be able to sometimes develop immunities to certain pathogens, like when we use a vaccination. That's it. Have you ever forgotten who you are? Probably not, but sometimes your cells do. Your white blood cells sometimes fail to realize the difference between you and a pathogen. They begin attacking various parts of your body. Even though they are causing harm to you, they can't tell the difference. Autoimmunity is a dysfunction of your cells in order to tell the difference between a pathogen and your gut, other tissues. This is usually caused by various diseases. Some are known as IDDM, SLE, Graves' disease, RA, and certain allergies. Autoimmunity is usually just treated with steroids.